Let's talk about sentence style and how to develop a voice in your writing. What is sentence style? People would describe that a lot of different ways. Some would describe it as your writing personality, just like your clothes that you wear each day say something about your personality. Well, your writing can say something about your personality, and it can have personality as well. Others would describe style as how you say something to an audience. It could be the tone that you use, the sentence length, structure, and variety, the use of various punctuation, and then figures of speech. All of these things and even more add style to your writing. This video is going to focus on the last three: sentence variety, use of punctuation, and figures of speech specifically. Let's first talk about compound sentences. Compound sentences are when two complete sentences are joined together with a comma and a joining word, sometimes called a coordinating conjunction. And those words include things like but, so, and yet. So let's look at two simple sentences. The first says, Rachel stayed up too late watching Game of Thrones. The next says, she is feeling very tired today. These are both independent clauses, just regular old sentences that have a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. But if we wanted to turn them into a compound sentence, we could join them with a comma and the word so. Rachel stayed up too late watching Game of Thrones, so she is feeling very tired today. Sometimes we use simple sentences in our writing. Sometimes we use compound sentences to mix up the variety and the flow of our thoughts and to keep our readers engaged. Now let's talk about using dependent clauses. Dependent clauses are a group of words that can't stand alone without being attached to an independent clause with a comma. In other words, they're a group of words that don't form a complete sentence all by themselves. They kind of lead into a complete sentence. So here are some examples of dependent clauses. Because my alarm clock did not go off. It's not a complete sentence. It leaves us kind of wondering, okay, what happened because your alarm clock didn't go off? Another example says, when the cat jumped onto the table. Again, what happened? It leaves the reader wondering something. But when these dependent clauses are attached to a complete sentence, they make sense and they add variety and interest to our writing. Because my alarm clock did not go off, I overslept and missed the bus. When the cat jumped onto the table, it knocked over my cup of water. You can see that the dependent clause leads into the complete sentence with a comma at the end of the dependent clause. Now let's talk about how to use variety in your punctuation. Specifically, let's look at how semicolons are used. Semicolons are used like periods. They can connect two complete sentences, but those two complete sentences should be closely related to each other. So related ideas, or the second sentence is some kind of explanation of the first. Let's look at examples of complete sentences. Rachel overslept because her alarm clock did not go off. She missed the sociology final exam. Okay, those are two complete sentences that both end with a period. But let's use some variety and join them with a semicolon. Rachel overslept because her alarm clock did not go off, semicolon. She missed her sociology final exam. You can see here that at the end of the first sentence, we have the semicolon. Then the second sentence begins, but the first letter of the word she is lowercase. So when you use a semicolon, you would not uppercase the first letter of the next word, which is a little bit different than using a period to separate sentences. Okay, let's look at how to use colons. Colons actually have a lot of different rules. We're going to look at one specific rule in this presentation. We're going to look at how to use a colon. Oops, excuse me. Let's do this. We're going to look at how to use a colon after a complete sentence to introduce a full list. So we're going to use it after a complete sentence to introduce a list. Here's an example. Aya went to the grocery store to get ingredients for dinner. Okay, that's a complete sentence. But let's say we want to add a list to the end of it. We can say Aya went to the grocery store to get ingredients for dinner. Then we have a colon, and we can list the ingredients that she bought: chicken, pasta, and cheese. Here's another example. Students should use the available college resources, colon, tutoring services, and financial aid. You'll notice that the complete sentence is before the colon, and the information after the colon is not a complete sentence. It's just a listing of items. All right, let's move on to figures of speech. And in this presentation, we'll look specifically at metaphors. Metaphor is a figure of speech that describes an object or action in a way that isn't literally true, but it helps explain an idea or make some kind of comparison. A metaphor basically says that one thing is another thing, and this comparison usually helps readers better understand it or comprehend the idea better. So that's why writers often use metaphor. Here are some common examples of metaphor that you might have heard before. Love is a highway. My son is a couch potato. Her voice is music to my ears. His words are pearls of wisdom. Love is not literally a highway, right? But it's drawing a comparison between love and a highway. Someone's son is not literally a couch potato, but through that comparison, we get the idea that the son sits on the couch all the time, doesn't do much, maybe looks like a potato because he doesn't get enough physical activity. Her voice is music to my ears. Her voice is not literally music, but maybe it's so sweet that it sounds like music when someone hears it. So as you can see, metaphors are comparisons to help readers better understand an idea or a concept. All right, finally, we're going to talk about using vivid descriptive words in your writing to develop your style. Vivid language usually makes something more interesting to read, and it typically incorporates the 5 senses to describe something. So sight, taste, touch, smell, and sound. Here's an example of a sentence without vivid language. Jalen walked on the beach as the sun set on the horizon. Okay, not a bad sentence, but it could be more interesting. Let's improve it. Jalen walked on the warm, sandy beach as the blood orange sunset illuminated the summer evening horizon. Now we know that this occurrence is happening in the summer, that it's a pretty warm evening. The sand even feels warm on her feet. And we get an idea of what color the sun is in the sky as it's illuminating the horizon. Now it's time to practice. For your class activity, you'll be asked to incorporate all of these elements or strategies reviewed in the presentation. So have some fun. Don't worry about being right or wrong. Just try out something new to make your writing more stylish, more engaging, and maybe more fun to write.